Another mailbox story. I posted this as a reply to someone else's mailbox story. I was informed that it should be its own post, so here it is edited slightly for clarity. This didn't start out as a quest for vengeance. We just wanted mail delivery to our house. Vengeance came as a byproduct, but it was truly delightful nonetheless. So mailbox story time. This happened back in 1982. For the record, my folks moved to a very rural area on a gravel road. No one had previously lived here, so it was a battle just getting mail delivery in the first place. My folks went several rounds with the local postmaster. He was somewhat enamored with his own power and very much a rules to the letter kind of guy. Every I must be dotted, every T crossed, and if there's so much as a semicolon out of place you'll have to start all over again. He seemed to have made it his personal mission to make getting mail delivery to a new address as difficult as humanly possible. Ultimately my folks managed to fill out the paperwork to his satisfaction, and he begrudgingly allowed us to put up a box and receive mail delivery at our new home. Dad was extremely careful in the placement of our box and making absolutely certain it was the exact height, precise placement from the road, etc., to avoid annoying our local postmaster any more than we already had. There are, or at least were, very specific rules about rural mailboxes. Dad followed every single one. That first mailbox was perfect. The man who drove the road grader was as annoyed as the local postmaster, as he now had a new driveway to accommodate. We suspect that's why he had it out for our mailbox. After the road grader had demolished 3 of our mailboxes, Dad got pissed. Previously he'd used the most basic design, just a post in the ground with a box on top. Now he was motivated. Dad got a hold of a 9-foot long section of metal pipe. It's 4 inches in diameter, outer measurement, and has 3/4 inch thick walls. I have no idea what this was originally intended for, but I know how Dad used it. He dug a hole 5.5 feet deep. He welded an upside down tripod shape, think open umbrella, to the bottom of the pole and dropped it into the 6-foot wide hole. Each welded on leg was about 3 feet of some kind of rebar, and there were 5 such spokes. He then dropped some huge rocks on top of the tripod shape to hold it in place. The empty spaces around the huge rocks were filled in with gravel, and he dumped sand to fill in the air gaps. Then he filled the rest of the hold in with dirt and mounted the mailbox on top of the post. 3 days after Dad installed the new mailbox, we heard the road grader coming down the road. Our house is a 1/4 mile from the road, but we heard the loud clang from inside. We also heard the cursing and swearing from inside. No one went down to look until they heard the road grader drive away. When they did, the box itself was slightly dented on one side, but it was still firmly upright and functional. 3 weeks later, we received a bill from the township for a bent grader blade. It was accompanied by a letter informing us that we had caused damage to city property because our mailbox was installed incorrectly. It would need to be moved, and we were liable for a bill of a couple $1,000s worth of repairs. Here's where it becomes pro-revenge instead of petty. Recall the fact that the local postmaster was annoyed with us over our battle to get mail delivery. Mom had made a point of, each time we're installed the mailbox, taking photographs down to the post office and having the local postmaster sign off approval of the height, placement, etc. She'd done the same with Dad's superpost and had documented signed approval of the box dated the day before the road grader had bent his blade trying to demolish the box. She submitted copies of the invoice for the grader blade, and the letter stating that the damage was our fault because our mailbox was incorrectly placed, to the post office. She also submitted copies of the official post office approval of the box to the township. The jerk of a postmaster was also quite prideful and became furious that his authority was being called into question by some podunk township. As far as he was concerned, the township wasn't questioning my parents. They were stating that his judgment was wrong. I don't know what went down between the postmaster and the township, but we received a second letter from the post office reiterating their approval of our mailbox. We also got a formal apology from the township and notice that the road grader's contract had been terminated because he'd lied about damage to city property. It was worded with a tone that said, "Please don't sue us because a contracted employee damaged your property." For the record, that post Dad installed nearly 40 years ago is still standing. We've replaced the box on top many times. That post however has now wrecked 2 cars and a truck in addition to that long ago road grader. Goes to show that while a bureaucrat can make like miserable wielding paperwork, it can also be used to bury them. Document isn't just for our litigious times. Your mom was well ahead of the curve. I genuinely laughed out loud. Great story, reminds of me an urban folklore I heard a long time ago. A road construction crew kept having all of their barrels knocked over early in the morning by some asshat who drove a beater pickup truck. He would open his door and bloop 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 knock all the barrels over through the zone. After the 3rd or 4th day the foreman filled one of the barrels with concrete. Along came Mr. Asshat. Right on time, bloop bloop smash went his door. The barrels didn't get knocked over anymore after that. I am curious as to where this is. I was employed part-time with the township for about 6 months in 1980 in Wisconsin. Here, if the township damages your mailbox, they have to replace/repair it. And they carry insurance for that. In the time I worked for them, I had to help replace 2 mailbox posts. I grew up on a state highway with rural route mail service. Our mailman drove a big sedan and the right side was always all smashed up. We discovered that the mailman knew the location and operators of the local still. And that mail patrons before the still never had their mailbox destroyed, and patrons after the still averaged about 2 mailboxes destroyed a year. My father replaced our post and mailbox a couple times, then the rural utility replaced the power poles. The old poles were left on the ground for later pickup. Well, we had a selection of tractors and places to store old power poles, so some of them were appropriated, with creosote regulations nowadays. This couldn't fly, but back then no one really cared. Anyway, an 8-foot section of pole buried almost 6 feet deep makes a great mailbox post. It's still there over 50 years later. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and subscribe. It's free. Check out some other videos I've made.